I grew up in Compton in the late 80s, early and 90s, and if you know anything about Compton at that point in time, it was probably the most dangerous city in America for many of those years. And I was a basketball player. I went to Dominguez High School. We were the #1 team in the country. We won a national championship my freshman year of high school. And all at the same time, while I was like going through an identity crisis of like understanding who I was as a bisexual man. And so at the time, growing up where I grew up, there was no conversation to be had around identity in that way. So it was a lot of self-exploration and trying to figure out like what anything even meant or what certain feelings even meant. And so for me, steeped in a city full of gang violence, hypermasculinity, and sports, it was using the things that I had that I was good at, which is writing, which I had done since I was a little kid. I'd always been a writer, but I never thought of it as anything other than just a thing I liked doing. And it wasn't until college, or actually it wasn't until high school, when one of my English teachers pulled me aside after class and said, "Hey, you're really good at this. You should pay attention to this skill that you have." So after I went to college, I tore my meniscus in practice. I was out of basketball for a year, and I started taking film classes and learning that I had such a unique story life background that I just never thought of in that way because I just lived it. It was just trying to survive. And in exploring that and realizing like, well, basketball's not gonna be a thing for me anymore, I started doing stand-up. I still do stand-up. But I wanted to become a storyteller. I wanted to tell my story. I wanted to tell your story. I wanted to tell other people's stories. And so when I graduated college, I started doing stand-up until I got my first job writing on The Daily Show in 2012. And I was always very passionate about politics. And so it was my dream job. It was the only job I wanted, and I got it on the first try. I was very lucky. And so for me, that was, if you watch The Daily Show is taking a narrative that we're fed by our government and by the world around us and deconstructing that narrative and figuring out where the truth lies in that narrative and how to make that palatable for people. And you juxtapose that with the Colbert Report, which was reconstructing a narrative, which was taking the day's news and telling you what it actually means in the same way you would see on maybe Fox News. And so for me, I became really enveloped in doing those things. How can I tell stories? How can I write things that matter? How can I bring myself to all of these experiences that I'm having now? How do I bring myself as the only black writer at The Daily Show to this room and be whole in it and feel like I can speak up and I can have a voice? And it's very difficult for a lot of people. It was difficult for me in the beginning because you are alone and no one looks like you and no one thinks like you, and you have to overcome a lot of those type of things. And so in doing these things and like winning the first Emmy and having that validation as a writer, it made me realize that what I was doing was important. Who I was important enough to bring to this space, and that my story itself was important, which is then led to me selling a show to HBO, which was like basically based on my life, my dating life. And so that became taking real narrative from my life that had never been seen before, because I had never seen anything on TV that looked or represented me. I'd never seen a character that told my story. I saw black stories, I saw the occasional queer story, I saw athlete stories, but I never saw anything like me. And I realized the only way that was gonna happen was I had to create it myself. And so I stepped up and wrote a script, and I sold it. And so that, for me, the power, at least in storytelling and the narrative, is I look at the messages I get from people on a daily basis who are people who feel so invisible and so left out of their community, whether, especially, it's pretty much all bi people, but like they don't fit in the straight community, they don't fit in the gay community, and they get shit from both sides. I'm sorry, can I say? I don't know.
You're okay.
And so like my inbox is just flooded with messages from people who are like, I can't wait to finally see something on TV that includes me, that tells my story and does it in a way that's not stereotypical or makes me like some type of like sex vixen or some type of like person who wants to like sleep with everybody. And so that was really important to me. And I feel like that, when you think about the way shows like Will and Grace move the country forward on gay rights and gay marriage, it's important to have storytelling that's diverse. It's important to have storytelling that has representation because as the saying goes, you can't beat it if you can't see it. And so seeing yourself, seeing things that represent you, it allows us to tell stories that that use technology in that way and that can get us to a place where we haven't been in places that we didn't even know existed, which is like places like my life.